the biggest thrill of my job is watching and amplifying other folks' voices to where they know they're awesome. Like they know they're amazing.
So, welcome to the You Are Lawyer podcast, Brooke Salazar. How are you today?
I'm so excited to be here. I've been absolutely looking forward to it. I'm a fan, longtime fan, first-time caller. So I've listened to all of your stuff before, and I loved it. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So you and I connected a couple months ago. We were talking about the fact that you want to write a book, all the things about being a lawyer, being first-generation lawyers. So, Brooke, would you tell the audience what you do every day? What does a typical day look like in your life?
Well, that's a great question.
Small question, just a question.
Yeah, like most lawyers, it can look a lot different day to day. I'm wildly blessed to have a position at Compliance Dashboard where I'm the Senior Director of Compliance. And I get to help HR folks and benefit brokers every day with employee benefits compliance questions. And I absolutely love it because I get to be myself and embrace who I am and take complex ERISA issues and ACA and employee benefits and all kinds of acronyms and, dare I say, make it fun.
Yeah.
And then I'm also a practicing lawyer, which I absolutely love. Diversity, DEI is very close to my heart.
So I have to ask, because I typically like the content to be evergreen, where I don't talk about dates and years and all of it. But it's 2024, and the Supreme Court just said, there were all these changes with DEI and all of it. How is that impacting your job? Is there anything you can share about how that is changing stuff?
I think on the DEI front, it's a really interesting time now because I think that you really have to have the experience in corporate America that you have implemented complex DEI plans from multiple fronts rather than one-hit wonder talks or other things that may not penetrate to the depth of the organization.
Yeah.
So when I talk or when I speak, I can't speak to your experience. I can only speak to my experience. And one of the ways I do that is, I talk about socioeconomic status. When I grew up, we didn't have a lot. I had no connections coming into the professional world. So being able to talk about that and how you rise within an organization, because everybody needs sponsors and what that looks like, and everything from how do you recruit deep candidate pools and diverse candidate pools to pay equity audits and training managers so we can all identify, we all have unconscious bias in some form or fashion. And I'll share with you that I was actually told that I had an unconscious bias towards women, which I immediately said, because I managed a team of folks, and I said, no, I don't. Thanks for your feedback. But I don't. I'm a huge advocate for women, and I refuse to believe that. And then I did some introspection, and I really looked at that, and the way I grew up, it was women have to work harder than men, and that's what I was taught, and somehow I carried that. It didn't adversely impact anybody.
Yeah.
But I had this tendency to be harder on women than on men. So talking about not only providing safe environments where we can hear that feedback, but being honest enough to know ourselves that that's neurology. This is how some of our brains work.
Yeah.
But it's not conscious.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that you were able to do that work yourself, because just because you're a teacher doesn't mean that you don't experience these things, right? It's not like I'm training and so therefore I'm above it. You're like, oh, let me look and see, do I have this issue as well? I had to deal with something like that when I became a parent, because my daughter loves to cuddle. She will be up under you all day long. And I'm like, what if her love language is just quality time and touch? And she can't tell me that until she's 14. So now she's showing it. And I'm like, okay, because in my mind, it's like, no, be independent, go play, go do this. You know what I mean? And it's like, she's 4. Let her sit up under you. But like even that is an unconscious thing because it's like, okay, well, why don't I want her to do this? Why do I want her to be different? Why can't I let her just be 4? You know, so all of that to say, when you were talking, you said one of my favorite words, which is sponsor. So many lawyers think that they need a mentor, and a lot of times they do. However, they also need a sponsor, and I would say that a sponsor might just be a little bit more important. Would you share some details about how sponsorship and sponsors have impacted your career?
Oh, unabashedly, sponsors have made my career.
Okay.
There is no way that I could have the amazing career that I do without sponsorship. And I've listened to your podcast. I know that you talked about sponsorship before, but it's literally that person that says your name in the room when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
And without that, there's no way I would have been able to even get into some of the rooms that I've been in. And yes, I'm great. I shine my own buttons. Unabashedly, I shine my own buttons. But without great sponsorship, it wouldn't have been possible. And that's one of those things when we talk about first generation lawyers or first generation professionals. If you don't have the ability to have an authentic connection with maybe somebody from a different background than you, because all of my sponsors, most of them have been multi-generation professionals, multi-generation lawyers. So their background, their experiences growing up looked a lot different than mine.
Yeah.
And being able to connect on a sincere level took a little bit of understanding that I was going to have to fit into their world a little bit more, but also be myself. So I think that can be kind of tricky.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're looking for sponsorship is people that you cannot make that authentic connection with.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point because a lot of times we're looking for someone who can help us and someone who knows more than us, which a lot of lawyers do, especially when you're first starting your practice. But sponsorship is more, you can't just ask someone, hey, will you sponsor me? You have to be close enough for them to be like, I'll vouch for you. You have to have that relationship for them to just automatically start saying, wow, Brooke is fantastic. Oh, did you know that Brooke was the one that just did this or that or whatever? You can't really ask someone to do that. You can, but it either won't happen or it'll be really inauthentic and people won't follow it anyway, right? So, all right, Brooke. So let's talk about being a pioneer, okay? So you work in compliance and then you also work as a lawyer. Mm-hmm. Are you the first lawyer in your family?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm the first college grad in my family.
First college grad, first lawyer. Me too. So how did you decide to be a lawyer? Why did you decide to go to college? How did it all start?
Well, there was never an option whether or not I would go to college. My mama felt the pinch of not having a degree for most of her career. So there was no question whether I was going to college or not. I can remember going to IU Bloomington when I was 5 or 6 years old, Indiana University. And I just remember reading about these amazing civil rights lawyers from a very young age and wanting to be able to make an impact. And I'm the first person to say, though, look, if you can do anything else and be happy, don't be a lawyer. Don't awesome. Be a lawyer. And so that's why I was in HR for maybe 10, 12 years before I went back to law school. So I went back to law school when I was 35. And I did it because it just kept coming around and coming around and coming around. And I finally felt like the universe was talking to me. Okay. And it's helped me to grow my career. But I think that, like you said, I was raised to be very strong and independent. And I can tell you, my grandma Salazar, she would say, get your education. No one can take that away from you. And it was a mantra that I remember hearing from as long as I can remember. And so it was a gift. Education is absolutely a gift.
Yeah, education is a gift. It is also networking. It's maturing, right? Like, there are many days you can ask me, did I enjoy law school? Would I go again? And I would tell you absolutely yes. And then there's also days when I'm like, but it was one of the darkest times of my life. But the people I met, the environments I was in, the way it stretched me. I don't remember us talking about this before when we chatted, but I went to school at 28. And so I had gone to college and then I was working and I kept thinking about law school and I was like, oh, I'm going to forget it. And I kept thinking about it and then I would get a promotion and I would still be thinking about it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to finally do it. And so there's some strength to us going after working, right? The fact that we didn't just go straight through from undergrad to, because I think the hunger for it was a little bit different, right? We left money to come and do this. So it has to work. Like, our perspective about it is different.
Absolutely. And I think everything is about money.
Life is about money.
And
that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I know sometimes it's one of those things where you shouldn't talk about, like, we shouldn't talk about money, but money is crucial. And it was an evaluation of what was I making in HR versus the debt that I would have to go in. I went part-time and I still worked, and that 0 stars, do not recommend. It is hard, it is long, it is a slog. It will take years off your life. But other than that, everything was great. But the balance of you're going to come out and you're going to have debt, and being old enough to recognize that unless you're in the top 5, not 5%, but like the top 5, the top 10 of your class, you're probably not going to come out making like suits money, right? Like, you're going to come out making the kind of money I had built into my career. So the debt and the amount of money that I could make was absolutely an important piece of that decision-making process. And anybody thinking about going to law school, absolutely look at the compensation levels of the type of law you want to practice, what kind of firm you want to be in, how much you want to work. I mean, I know one individual, he went for his first child's birth, and a partner was like, well, you should have taken your computer. So look, at 30, I got out when I was 39. I'm not about that life. Like, I'm not about it. I'm not about that life anymore. So trying to compete, I understood that I would want a position in-house, but I also understood trying to compete with folks in their early 20s over billable hours was not going to be an option for me in my 40s.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important part, because if you're listening to this and you're still in law school and you're like, okay, well, I want to make a difference, but making a difference doesn't pay well. Being that starting DA is not really going to cut it, or doing this or that. If you need to take care of the money and your debt so that you can be amazing and serve all the people later, that is okay, right? Because you could go out there and you could take the absolute job that you love, and then you're so stressed, or you have to move back in with your parents or something that you would consider to be undesirable, and then you're unhappy anyway, right? So I think what I'm hearing is life is long, your career after law school is long, and it can change. So you have to determine like what part is super important right now when you get out of school, and then you have to make your decision based off of that.
Right. My position now, I'm not an attorney, and I am fantastic with it because it frees me up to do other things that I wouldn't be able to do. But I think sometimes we get into this drive mode, especially with law school, where we're competing. And I would encourage everyone to remember, Jones Esquire next door, you have no idea what's going on in their home. Don't compete. Just be yourself. But if you are in law school and you are interested in a certain industry or profession, you want to explore employment law, go to an HR conference. You're in law school, you get a student discount, and those are the people you're going to be serving or litigating against. So go and learn their language, learn their terms. And then that way, when you come out, you'll be better able to interact with them and communicate with them because you know their language and you know what they're facing every day because you've hopefully networked and made friends. And so when I was in law school, there was a big push to meet and network with other attorneys, which 1000% I am so incredibly grateful for the attorneys that I know. They are amazing. We've swapped opportunities, absolutely. But the business people I know, that's who brought me opportunities.
Yeah.
And if you are a first generation or you just don't have contacts or the financial capability to maybe meet somebody at a golf club or at a private school basketball game, I would advocate for you to lean into who you are. And when I passed the bar, I was the only Salazar admitted to the bar in Indiana. And Salazar's like Smith in
Okay.
Spanish. And so lean into who you are, and I could relate to those folks 100%. And they can help you, and they want to help you build your book of business. But the best thing is other folks aren't going to be there, so you're not going to be competing with those people. But definitely, if you're interested in environmental law, go to an environmental conference. Start making those business contacts, because they're going to inherently want to introduce you to whoever their lawyer is or their opportunity.
Yeah, that's so true. People love to share and talk about themselves and what they're doing, and they would definitely let you come and watch or ask questions or all of it. Like, people love it when you show interest in those kind of things. I love that. The tip to go to conferences, it's actually really smart.
Imagine.
No, I'm like, I got to do a blog about that. Like, hey, you're missing out on this whole thing. Because not even just the networking, but like, you'll literally hear about the stuff they're talking about. So let's say you go to an ERISA conference and you're like, gross, this will be my life. Maybe that's not for you.
You go to an HR conference and you say, "Hey, I don't care about career pathing, and I don't really care about candidate pools and how people find them." Well, that has to do with employment law.
Yeah.
And that's what your client's going to be interested in. And so is that path for you or is it not? And I also, just to return to the money thing, I would also say, if you're first generation, definitely evaluate who you're bringing with you. Stacey Abrams had said this about first generation folks, is that you're bringing your community with you. So your net take home may not look like your net take home if you're bringing folks with you. So whether that's family members or what have you. So always when you're doing the computing and doing all of the budgets, make sure that you calculate that in, because that could look different.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And if anyone is surprised or wondering, like, what was that quote that she said? What she means is, if you get paid now or for whatever job you have and you are taking care of a parent or a child or an aunt or an uncle, or even like just putting money towards caring for those people, or even literally spending your time to care for them, you have to think about those things, right? You may not have all the energy to go and do the stuff that you love to do to help out Big Mama or whoever when you're working this big law job and doing all of your stuff. So
like, it was hard because my mother
yeah.
would still tell me, like, keep your head down and work hard and people will notice your work. And so I had a real aversion to networking and branding and self-promotion. And then finally, my bestie, who's a VP of marketing, Margaret Osborne, she said, you can be the best at what you are, but if no one can find you, you're like past the big rock from mile marker 4, past the big fir tree, no one's going to know.
Yeah.
And so once I kind of let that marinate and let that process, I was able to shine my own buttons a little bit more and really lean in to who I was.
Yeah, I don't remember one instance that changed me from hiding to being shining my own buttons, but I know it had something to do with my sponsor and being in big law, because I got this job just being a little like document specialist reviewing stuff because I hadn't passed the Ohio bar exam. And so I was like, well, let me just get a job working in the basement of a law firm, literally the basement. And my notes and everything were so good that the attorneys would ask me, they'd be like, oh, you're so great. Where did you study? And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I went to law school. And next thing, like by the time I left in 5 years, I literally had a corner office. It was an internal office on a hallway.
Not the point. That's not the
but
point.
I literally had a corner office because they were like, no, come here. And I was like, what do you mean? They were like, your talents and trainings and skills far exceed. They were like, we don't care that you're not licensed. You can still do so much more stuff. And people literally started piling things onto me and I would handle it. And they were like, okay. And then slowly I was like, oh, I handled that. Oh, I did that. Like I think their confidence transferred to me. And then I started to be like, oh yeah, I can do this. Oh, I can do that. I can do this. So Sometimes it takes someone else to even show it to you and be like, no, you are still a huge deal. So
I
yeah.
love that. You know, mentorship is hard and mentors have to be ready on both sides. And so I always teach, you know, if you're not ready for mentorship or if you don't want to give honest feedback, if you're not comfortable with that, then maybe mentorship is not for you. Maybe you're a sponsor inherently.
Yeah.
That to me is the biggest thrill of my job is watching and amplifying other folks' voices to where they know they're awesome. Like they know they're amazing. And that's such a gift to be able to do once you that's one of the fun things. If you're wondering a fun thing to be a lawyer or get to a certain point in your career, it's being able to spotlight and highlight others where it gets
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah, it does. It's definitely fun. So, Brooke, my mind is swimming because I really want to talk about you running a business. Did you know any other entrepreneurs? Like, what was it that made you decide, okay, I think I could run my own law firm?
That's a great question. And I'm giggling. Lawyers are still allowed to giggle in case anybody's wondering.
Yes.
I'm laughing because I didn't think I could run my own firm. I was going to go in with a cohort, and that individual wobbled. Because of my network and because of my sponsors, I had my shingle up. And I know there are some things that I know I'm very good at. I'm very good at building authentic connections. I'm very good at building a book of business because I really embraced authentic networking. And when I say authentic networking, I mean, I'm not going to walk out with 200 people's cards. Like, that's not what I want. I want,
Okay.
if there's 200 people at an event, I want to walk out with 5 authentic connections that I know they will refer business to me or I will refer business to them or we'll do business together. And I would put women together to talk about business opportunities because I'm like, you're really good at this and you're really good at that. And I think you can make money together. And I would put them together and then I would say, hey, how'd it go? And they would say, oh, her cat's name is X. Her childhood drama is this. And they would say, what about the business? And they're like, well, we didn't get to that. Because sometimes women can be uncomfortable talking about business opportunities. And so I made a point to just put it out there to people like, hey, this makes me really uncomfortable, but I think I could do this, this, and this for you. Thoughts? Like, just the most awkward, terrible.
Yeah.
And people would laugh and they would be like, well, yeah, we would love for you to do that. And the next thing you knew, I had a client. Yeah. And so that's one of those things when we talk about confidence, understand what you're really good at and lean into that. And I kind of stay away from spaces that I know I'm not going to get traction, where I know Brooke Salazar is never going to look and act like a suits lawyer off of the show. Like, that's not who I am. And so to be able to bring my personality and lean into that and lean into the business side too, because since I was in HR for so long, I was able to talk about, here's the business side, here's the legal side. Now it's your choice to make a decision. Where sometimes if you don't have that experience, lawyers can sometimes ignore the business side.
No, it's true. I mean, there's so many guests who've been on this show, and I'm like, how did you start a business? And they're like, I got a coach, I read a book, I followed this person, right? Having an idea is not the same as managing and running the business. They're very, very separate. And so I find the best lawyers, the best people to be the ones that are like, I didn't understand it, so I went and read it or I learned something else, right? The people who aren't like, oh, I can figure it out. It's having the confidence to know you can figure it out, but still getting the understanding and the training from somewhere else. So
I'm trying to remember who it was. I read a really good book, and the nugget that I took away was automate as much as possible, but also understand that people want to work with people that they connect with. And so this was an estate planning attorney, and she said, she did a newsletter with her authentic voice. And so when she would see people out and about, or they would call her, they already felt like they knew her, like they had a connection. And what I took away was really lean into who you are because that's going to set you apart from everybody else.
No, it's very, very true. I'm laughing at your comment or post where you were like, yeah, I'm here for the business part, but I'm really awkward at asking for it, because I do a lot of that too. I'm just like, hey, so-and-so sports team is playing, so I guess I can talk about sports today. But like, nobody else is doing that. Most everybody else has 18 virtual assistants writing their stuff or this or that, and they all want to give the appearance of this is done right. And I'm like, no, this is me on LinkedIn. I'm really writing this post. Hey, oh, you see those 3 misspellings? See? There's something to that, right? In a world where everything wants to be picture perfect, Instagram perfect, and we're like, yeah, I'm not good at this, but I promise I'm good at business. Won't you try?
That's the thing, right? People do not connect with perfect. At least
Mm-hmm.
my market that I shoot for, they do not connect with perfect. When running my business, it's whether it's CEOs or VPs of HR, those, and let's be real, the people that are going to hire me, they're not hiring a big firm. Otherwise, they would. And so I got business from a lot of big, prestigious firms because I'm really good at what I do. And they knew that I can't compete, like, I could never compete with them. And so being able to say, look, I can do this, but if this happens, I'm not your person. I'll get you to the best person, in
Yeah.
my opinion, but I'm not going to be that person for you. But the idea that lawyers have to present perfectly, look perfect, I refuse to believe that. And maybe as a woman that's how I feel that. Maybe I'm putting that burden on myself. But when I first became a lawyer, I got a lot of, you don't look like a lawyer. You don't talk like a lawyer. And it hurt my little baby lawyer feelings
You're like, I worked hard to be here. What
a
do
lot.
you
I was like,
mean?
is it because I don't have a blazer on? Is my bag not fancy enough? Like, nobody bought my law school bag, nobody bought me a fancy suit,
Yeah.
briefcase.
Even if you had it, you probably would have left it somewhere. She would have forgot it was yours.
Listen, I am so hard on stuff. Like, my dogs drool on it. I spill coffee on it. I throw it on the floor. That's not my vibe. So finally one day somebody said that to me, and I asked, and I said, help me, why do you say that? Help me
Mm-hmm.
understand. What do I need to just have a blazer in my purse at all times? And fancy, and I always think the suits lawyers, the fanciest of shoes,
Yeah.
the highest of, high heels. And they said, no, you speak to me like I'm a human, and you
Oh,
use words that I can understand, and I feel more comfortable with you.
wow.
So now, now I say, I appreciate that. Thank you. Because I should not have to spend a client's billable hour on explaining to them what I'm saying to them.
Yeah.
I should spend that money, which is valuable because I've been on the other side. I've managed outside counsel, explaining how it impacts their business, not trying to use these words that make me sound legal easy, which
Right.
I would argue the people that understand any concept the most thoroughly are the ones that can teach it to a layperson or
Yeah.
teach it to somebody outside.
Absolutely. You don't look like a lawyer. That's a huge compliment. Yeah, I like that. I'm like, that's a good title for my creative brain. I'm like, that could be a blog, that could be a book, that could be a podcast
You don't
episode.
sound like a lawyer. I got that.
Yeah.
You don't seem like a lawyer. So I don't look like one. I don't sound like one. And I think that comes from my angst about it. Definitely came from insecurity I had from a
Yeah.
kid. I wanted to be. You can still hear me talk about it, right? I want to be fancy enough. I want to be considered fancy enough. And at the end of the day, people just want good customer service and good legal work.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning that even in this new role because I did fall into the hoopla of big law and $1,000 suits and foolishness. And it was, they pay you so well that you can spend the money on it. And then when you decide to leave and you're like, well, what do I do with these suits now? Right? It's like, well, why did I spend that money on stuff? Right? Like you fit in when you were there. And then I had this whole creative side of me that popped up like, hey, no, we want to do something else. And so actually I was really uncomfortable doing this. And it wasn't until I surpassed my law firm salary where I was like, am I allowed to leave and do something else? I know the money is the same, but like, I literally was like, who am I if I don't have an employer? I was like, wait. And so the first thing I had to do was like start my LLC and then start paying myself. Like every time you have a recording, that's $250 for you, right? And I was like, okay, you do have a boss. Okay.
Well, I love a fancy suit on somebody else. 1,000, I just want to say, like, I love it. But I think my mom would always tell me whenever I would leave for school, know who you are, where you came from, and what you stand for.
Aww.
And that makes these micro or big decisions really easy when you have that. And so I know who I am, and I am the person that hates to throw away her t-shirts because she keeps getting stains on them. Do the most with what you have and be comfortable in your skin. Women, and I'm not a man, so I don't know, I don't have that feeling about their issues, but birds of a feather flock together. Some of my closest female attorney friends are first generation lawyers. For me, I don't have a problem saying that I didn't grow up in a certain way. For some CEOs that I work with, I was the first working poor person they'd ever met. And I bring that perspective, and that's what makes me unique. And I've had CEOs ask me, aren't you embarrassed to talk about how you were raised? And absolutely not. My parents are amazing. They worked multiple jobs. There were 4 of us with a few things going on, and that's just the way it was, but absolutely not. And so I am incredibly proud of where it came from and who I am between 2 cornfields downwind of a hog farm. And
when you're like, no, literally.
Yeah, no, literally, which means that I can smell, BS from a mile away. So there's a gift there, but trying to constantly cover or mask that part of myself, I tried for a long time, and it was exhausting.
Yeah. I did the same thing with passing the bar. That was more of a revelation than even being a first generation college graduate, because my parents had decent jobs. We were taken care of, and I just remember seeing them. They both were entrepreneurs, but they didn't make any money as entrepreneurs. So I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like, I used to brag about getting a monthly paycheck when I was at the firm, because that was even better than getting paid every 2 weeks or weekly at some places. Because I'm like, no, I have this huge check. And I knew how to divvy it up, right? And so, but I was staunchly never wanted to own my own business, because I was like, okay, you follow your passion, but you don't make money. And so I had this whole different reckoning when I was like, so how do I learn how to make money, right? Like, I spent thousands of dollars on credit cards to be teach me how to make money. And thankfully I got a return on the investment, but I was like, okay, I didn't learn it from them. Who else can I learn it from, right? Oh, okay, well, let me try to catch this. I didn't mind being a first generation college student, because I was in the high school program with all the other kids who were first generations. And we were we're the upper bound kids. I didn't know anything about it. But to have paid all the money, to have signed all the loan paperwork to go to law school and then get out and not even have the Esquire, it was absolutely crushing. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I don't have an answer for the bar. How do you get good folks out there that know what they're doing, or at least know the questions to ask if they don't, without a bar? But I will tell you that I added up the cost, and it was $25,000 for me to pass the bar. Because guess what? My bills didn't go away. Student loans stopped. I had to have time to study for the bar for 3 months. And plus the bar program was $5,000. And when you look at first generation statistics and passing the bar, odds are you're not going to pass the first time. And so I had my first panic attack in law school during an exam. I got this tightness of chest. I couldn't breathe. And I told my mom, and she said, you had a panic attack. And I said, no, I don't panic.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, you just couldn't breathe? I just couldn't breathe.
Your body just shut down, and it's never done that before? Yeah.
Yeah, and it took half an hour for me to calm down, which was an important piece of the exam that I messed. Yeah, absolutely. Terrible test taker. And one test does not define who you are.
Yeah. You've mentioned having a side hustle. What is this other business that you're running?
Oh, my side hustle is my law firm, but
Okay.
I'm writing a first generation book on what, I don't know what the kids call it, hacks. I'm an old lady now. But the things that I wish I would have known when I started my career, and whether you're a first generation professional or whether you're a lawyer, but it's not just that, it's also how to build your book of business as somebody that is coming in with no connections.
Yeah.
You don't have the community connections, you don't have the economic connections, your family has no influence or contacts, so no one in that type of industry or at that decision making level.
And I've been realizing now how important that piece is, and what a lack, what kind of like a hole we have when we're the first generation. Because yes, my family could be like, oh my God, you're in law school, we're so proud of you. But also it's like, no, but today was absolutely terrible and I have to go read 375 pages. But you can do it. It's like, but you know what I mean? Like, you don't have anyone to be like, yeah, I've done that too. It sucks. Why don't you split up the work? Right? Like, you don't have that piece. It's like you're missing it. You're trying to do it all yourself. And I realized that as a business owner, when, you know, you're like, you tell your friends, yeah, so I started a business. And they're like, oh, okay, great. You know, I'll tell people to, what do you do? It's like, you want the help and you want the support, but you don't even know how to ask for it or how to explain it or how to do all the things. It is really hard being a pioneer.
Typically, if you're the first generation to come out of law school, you've been a high achiever. You've accomplished every goal you've ever tried to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so your community may not understand what that means and the commitment that it takes. It means, you know, I can't drive to your house because I can't lose time during law school because I have to study. What does it mean practically? Where before, you know, I climbed the corporate ladder, try not to let that impact my family. I tried to do everything. And whether you're in law school or a lawyer, your time is finite. And to not understand that can get you into a lot of ethical problems, your ethics board. So you have to understand you only have so much time. And if you come from a family that has consistently relied on using your time because you're the person that always gets it done, it can be a real point of strife.
Yeah. Family, and then also other relationships. My now husband, then boyfriend, we broke up our first semester of law school because I was like, okay, look, I'm going to be in contracts for now, and then I'm going to the library and I'm doing this. I can speak between these 45 minutes. And he was like, I'm not scheduling time to talk to my girlfriend, but he's not a lawyer. And so I was like, but I don't know any other lawyers, so I don't know how else to do this. So we ended up splitting because I was like, wow, even you don't get it? Like,
right? So. Or once you get out, I thought, you know, I'm not a litigator. I never wanted to be a litigator. I thought, well, I'm not a litigator. Life could look a little easy. Or I just worked with corporations, and I was in-house before for this position. And it's like, well, it's one more contract. Can't you just push it through? And it's like, no, I can't just push it through. I have to review every single point of it. And then I have to let the business know, hey, are you willing to accept these risks? This is probably going to happen. It's probably not. But it's all time. And to explain that to people, especially if somebody's working on a deadline, which all salespeople are, just FYI, can be really challenging in those, in all of your relationships, especially with adults, but especially with children too. I have nieces and nephews, or one nephew, and it can be really hard to explain that to them.
Life is already tough, and then we decide to be lawyers. So, Brooke, my absolute last question, which you'll be familiar with, I ask every single guest. What would you say to a young lawyer or a law student about what they can do with their law degree?
I've thought about this a lot because I said I've listened to all the podcasts. That's the beautiful thing about a law degree. You can do anything with it. And I would encourage you, do not get caught in a trap of what you should do with it. You'll have colleagues and cohorts going, what firm are you at? What firm are you at? Competition is the nature of law school. I'm only competitive with myself. And I would encourage all young lawyers and all law students, the only person you should be competitive with is yourself, because everything is going to ebb and flow, but you can really do anything that you want with your law degree. And that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I like that you said it. It's a beautiful thing, because for us rule followers, the ones that just want to, I'm supposed to go to law school and then I'm supposed to get that big job. There's supposed to be a plan. It is a thing of beauty and a thing, to have the flexibility to do whatever you want. It's not a bad thing to be like, oh my God, the options are endless. It is a good thing. It's a beautiful thing.
It really is. And once you understand what really makes you happy, and I would encourage, even if you're working a job that you hate, to get to your next job that you hopefully don't hate. We've all been there. To look at it every day and go, what made me happy today? What did I hate? Because you're going to be preparing for that next position and what you're looking for. Yeah. So really understand and know yourself and what you want your life to look like.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Brooke. It has been a pleasure to talk to you on the You Are a Lawyer podcast. I know we'll stay in touch because I'm all about books, so I'm definitely going to have to grab this book or motivate you to keep writing it or help you choose cover art or all of the things. So I'm excited to see what happens with you next.
This has been such a pleasure, and I appreciate your time, and I love chatting with you. Thank you so much.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.